In a dense forest on the outskirts of the village, the gentle crunch of branches underfoot could be heard. A man, dressed in a dirty jacket and worn-out boots, walked briskly, carrying a rope in one hand and a plastic bowl in the other. Following him with drooping ears and anxious eyes was an old dog named Lucy. Next to her, awkwardly placing their small paws, were 3 puppies. They were still very young, walking unsteadily, stumbling over roots, but not falling behind their mother. When they reached a large oak tree, the man stopped. Without even looking at the dog, he roughly tugged on the rope and tightly tied it around the tree trunk. Lucy whimpered, looking at her owner, not understanding what was happening. He placed the bowl with the remnants of yesterday's soup and left without a word. The puppies whimpered plaintively, hiding under their mother. "Enough," he muttered as he left. "You'll figure it out yourselves." And with that, he disappeared into the trees, not looking back, even once. Silence fell, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind and distant bird songs. Lucy sat huddled, with her 3 little ones pressed against her belly, not knowing what to do next. Day after day, they remained there. Occasionally a hare would dart by, and once a hedgehog wandered too close, but no people came. Nothing but rain, cold, and fear. Lucy tried to break the rope, saving her strength for the little ones and hoping that the one she considered a friend would return for her. Months passed. The forest seemed to forget about Lucy and her pups. The bowl had long emptied, the food gone in the first week. Miraculously surviving, the puppies had grown, learned to dig roots and catch small bugs. Lucy, emaciated and covered in dirt, continued to sit by the tree because the rope still bound her. She could no longer stand, only watch as her children learned to survive in this harsh forest. One day, a car stopped nearby. Mike and his girlfriend Sarah had come for a picnic. When they heard an odd howling from deep in the woods, they were initially frightened, but then, overcoming their fear, they followed the sound. What they found touched them profoundly. Under the tree where the rope once tied lay the old dog Lucy, barely breathing. Nearby stood 3 young, almost grown dogs, guarding their mother like soldiers, not letting anyone near, but with pleading eyes that said, "Save her." Mike took out a knife and carefully cut the rotten rope. Sarah was already on the phone with the shelter. One of the puppies, sniffing the new people, gently licked Mike's hand. "Who could do this to you?" whispered Sarah through tears. Thus began the journey to a new life. But no one knew that the story was just beginning, and ahead lay a meeting that would change everything. While Lucy and her children were at the shelter, caring volunteers watched over their fate. Lucy received her first medical help in years. Her wounds were treated, ticks removed, and she was fed. Her eyes, once full of pain and fear, began to come alive. The puppies also recovered quickly. Young and strong, they were grateful for every bowl of food and a soft bed. One day, Jack came to the shelter. He held an old photograph of Lucy as a pup, next to a man who turned out to be her former owner, Tom, Jack's brother. Tom had died under mysterious circumstances a few years ago, leaving behind only dark rumors and an abandoned house on the edge of the forest. A shelter worker, a middle-aged woman named Angela, led him to the room where the dogs were kept. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the cool autumn air coming through the open windows. The barking of dozens of dogs echoed off the walls, but Jack was searching for just one look, and he found it. In the far corner, on a worn blanket, lay Lucy. Her once luxurious coat had dulled, but those brown eyes were unmistakable. Next to her, curled up together, slept her 3 puppies. Max, with a white spot on his chest, Rocky, the largest of the 3, and the little Duke, who had inherited his mother's golden coat. "Lucy," Jack called softly. The dog lifted her head, and in her gaze there was recognition, a mix of fear and familiarity. She slowly rose, and the puppies woke up, standing by her side, warily eyeing the stranger. "I didn't know." Jack's voice trembled. Tom told me he found you a new home. I believed him. God, how could I have believed him? He knelt before the cage, tears streaming down his cheeks. Lucy took a tentative step forward. Her tail was lowered but not tucked. She remembered this voice, this scent. Jack often brought her bones and scratched behind her ears when visiting his brother. Angela watched the scene, leaning against the doorframe. In her years at the shelter, she had seen many stories, but this one was special. "Would you like to go in with them?" she quietly asked, taking out a set of keys. Jack nodded, unable to speak. The metallic sound of the unlocking cage echoed through the room. Lucy tensed, but didn't retreat. The puppies, following their mother, remained wary, but curiosity gradually took precedence. Entering the enclosure, Jack slowly knelt, extending a hand, palm up. As his father had once taught him, Lucy sniffed from a distance, her nostrils flaring, rekindling memories of a long-forgotten, yet familiar scent. Max was the first to break. He cautiously approached Jack's hand and gently nudged it with his nose. "They've been here for a month," said Angela, watching the unfolding scene. Lucy was in terrible condition when she was found, tied to a tree, emaciated. But look what a mother she is. She gave everything to the puppies, leaving almost nothing for herself. Jack listened, and each word struck like a hammer to his heart. He recalled the last conversation with his brother, Tom's odd behavior, the smell of alcohol. "I got rid of the problem," Tom had said, smirking. A week later, they found him dead in that very house on the edge of the forest. Rocky gathered courage, approached, and sat beside his brother. His dark eyes carefully studied the new person. Duke, the most cautious of the three, still stayed behind his mother, but his tail began to wag slightly. Lucy took another step forward. Despite everything she had endured, there was grace in her movements. She stopped directly in front of Jack, their eyes meeting. At that moment, something broke inside her. She recognized him fully. Her tail trembled, then slowly began to sway from side to side. "I'm sorry," Jack whispered, and Lucy, as if understanding, stepped forward and gently licked his hand. This simple canine gesture contained more forgiveness than any human words could express. Seeing his mother trust the stranger, Duke finally dared to approach. The smallest of the litter, he inherited his mother's cautious yet loving nature. Jack extended his other hand, and after a moment's hesitation, the puppy allowed himself to be petted. "You know," Angela said, sitting on a bench along the wall, "I've worked here for 15 years. Often I see animals forgive humans for things we ourselves can hardly forgive. They know how to love unconditionally." Jack silently nodded, not taking his eyes off the dogs. Max had fully settled in, trying to climb onto his lap. Rocky was exploring his jacket pockets, and Duke continued to gnaw on his shoelaces. Lucy watched this scene with unmistakable maternal pride, identical in all living beings. "How often can I visit them?" Jack asked, scratching Max behind the ears. His voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken in a long time. "Actually," Angela straightened up on the bench, "if you really want to help, you can take them home, all 4 of them." She looked closely at Jack, trying to read his reaction. Jack froze. The thought had crossed his mind, but he dared not hope. "I live alone, in a house with a small yard. I work remotely, so I have time. But am I worthy?" "After what your brother did," Angela shook her head. "You're here because you feel responsible. That already says a lot." At that moment, Max, as if deciding for everyone, flopped onto his back, exposing his belly for a scratch. Rocky, not wanting to be left out, laid his head on Jack's knee, and Duke continued to assault the shoelaces with determination. Lucy looked on approvingly at the scene. "The adoption process will take a few days," Angela continued. "We'll need to fill out paperwork, check living conditions. But I see that Lucy trusts you. She doesn't make mistakes about people, even after all she has endured." Jack looked at the dog that was once part of his family, at her puppies, who already considered him theirs. "I'll do everything right," he stated firmly. "They will have a home, a real home." Suddenly, footsteps were heard outside, and a middle-aged man in glasses entered the room. It was David Thompson, the shelter's veterinarian. He paused in the doorway, surprised to observe the unusual scene, a stranger surrounded by dogs who affectionately leaned toward him. "Angela, I brought Lucy's test results," he said, shifting his gaze from the dogs to the shelter employee. "She's all right. She's fully recovered." Lucy, hearing the familiar voice, wagged her tail in greeting. Over the past month, she had grown accustomed to this man, who was always kind to her and her puppies. David knelt next to Jack, gently extending a hand toward the dog. "I'm Jack Morrison," he introduced himself. "Lucy, she used to live with my brother." His voice wavered slightly at the last words. David nodded understandingly. Lucy's story was familiar to all the shelter staff. "You know, when she first arrived, she wouldn't let anyone near her, growled even at those trying to feed her. Only thanks to her puppies did she not give up completely. Her maternal instinct was stronger than her fear." Rocky, interested in the new person, approached the veterinarian and placed a paw on his knee, a gesture David had taught him during regular checkups. "This guy will make a great companion," the veterinarian smiled, scratching the puppy. "Smart, quick to learn." "Jack wants to take them all," Angela informed. "What do you think?" David looked at Jack intently, continuing to absently pet Rocky. "4 dogs are a huge responsibility," he began. "Especially given Lucy's history. She'll need time to fully trust and—" "I know," Jack interrupted him, "and I'm ready to wait as long as it takes, however long it takes." At that moment, Lucy, as if making a final decision, approached Jack and placed her head on his shoulder, a gesture of absolute trust. Max and Duke, seeing this, immediately joined their mother, and Rocky left the veterinarian to return to his family. David exchanged looks with Angela. Over the years of work, they learned to read the language of animals better than human words. What they saw now spoke for itself. "Okay," the veterinarian nodded. "I'll prepare all the necessary medical documents. The puppies will need their last vaccinations in a week. In the meantime," he took out a notebook from his coat pocket and began writing, "Here's a list of what you'll need first. Bowls, food, bedding, and my personal phone number. Call anytime." "Thank you," Jack quietly said, accepting the paper. Lucy still stayed close to him, and the puppies, exhausted by the excitement and new impressions, began to yawn. "Come back first thing tomorrow morning," Angela said. "We'll fill out the paperwork and start preparing them to move. They need to rest now." Jack reluctantly stood up, carefully moving the puppies that had nestled around him. Lucy watched his every move intently, and as he headed to the exit, her eyes flashed with concern. "I'll be back tomorrow," he promised, looking into her eyes. "I promise." Angela escorted him to the shelter's exit. The evening sun painted the sky in soft, orange tones, with dogs barking somewhere in the distance. "You know," she said, stopping at the gate, "sometimes the hardest trials lead to something good. Lucy lost her home, but gained a family. And you. And I got a chance to make things right," Jack concluded. "Not to atone, that can never be done, but maybe to create something new, something better." He took out his phone and opened the list David had given him. "I need to buy everything necessary. Tomorrow will be an important day." "The most important," Angela smiled, "for all 5 of you." Jack nodded and headed to his car. As he passed by the enclosures, he heard a familiar bark. Max was saying goodbye to him. Somewhere there, behind bars and walls, his new family was waiting for him. Strange, unusual, born out of pain and loss, but real. A month later, Lucy already slept on her new bed in the corner of Jack's spacious living room. Next to her, curled up, were Max and Duke, while Rocky, as always, settled a bit further away, having assumed the informal role of night watchman. On the wall hung a photo taken by Angela on the day of their move. 4 happy faces and a smiling Jack holding adoption papers. Every morning began with a walk in the garden, where the puppies raced each other, and Lucy leisurely patrolled her new domain. Each evening ended with a shared ritual. Jack would sit on the couch with a book, and his 4-legged family nestled nearby, snuggling close to their owner. The scars of the past gradually healed. Lucy no longer flinched at sudden noises, and in her eyes was the special sparkle only truly happy dogs possess. The puppies grew into beautiful, confident animals, never knowing fear or betrayal. As for Jack finally found what he had sought all his life: unconditional love and forgiveness, even in the most unexpected form. Each time Lucy laid her head on his knees, and each time the puppies joyfully greeted him at the door, he understood one simple truth. Sometimes you need to lose everything to find real treasure. In the end, family is not just blood ties, it's bonds of love, loyalty, and trust. And sometimes it comes to us on 4 paws, with a wet nose and wagging tail, to teach us the most important thing: to forgive and start anew. Did you enjoy this story? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to not miss new releases. See you soon.